hotels in the city of Colombo. Well, some information coming in at this point, and this again has got to do with the attacks in Sri Lanka. Well, the suicide bomber behind the attack at Shangri-La Hotel. You see this suspect on your screens right now. His name is Zehran Hashim. He is reportedly the suicide bomber behind the attack at the Shangri-La Hotel. He goes by the name of Zehran Hashim. We'll try and get an idea about who Zehran Hashim is in a bit from now, but this is his picture that you see on your screens right now. He is the person behind the attack at Shangri-La Hotel in Colombo today. Also, what we're learning is that this again via our sources within the intelligence unit, that Zehran Hashim wanted to attack the Indian High Commission also in Colombo earlier this month. Well, this is the man, Zehran Hashim, who is behind the attack in Shangri-La. He was a suicide bomber. He is Zehran Hashim. We'll try and get an idea about who is Zehran Hashim, which group is he associated with, but he's a suicide bomber. In fact, we also have a confirmation that there were 2 suicide bombers of the 6 attacks that took place in Colombo today, this morning. This is the man behind the attack in Shangri-La Hotel in Colombo. His name is Zehran Hashim. He, in fact, what we're learning is that wanted to attack the Indian High Commission in Colombo on the 4th of April early this month, but that was not successful. We'll try and get an idea about that as well. But Zehran Hashim is the man, the mastermind behind the attack in Shangri-La Hotel in Sri Lanka. Maha Siddiqui, in fact, continues to be with us. Maha, this is the picture. All right. We'll go back to Maha in a bit from now. It's a developing situation. We are getting information. It's trickling in, but this is what we can tell our viewers. We're talking about attacks in Colombo that has taken place. For our viewers who've just joined us, these were a series of coordinated bomb blasts, serial blasts that took place in Colombo today, this morning, 3 of them at least in churches. And we're talking about Easter Sunday. It's a religious day, it's a holy day, and people in churches were attacked in serial blasts that hit Colombo this morning. 3 hotels have also been targeted. The sense really is that the attack was to instill fear in the hearts of foreigners as well, and to cause maximum damage in terms of casualties. Well-coordinated blasts that have rocked Colombo in Sri Lanka. 129 is the death toll, is what we're learning. Zaka Jacob, our output editor, is also with us. Zaka, where are the investigations headed as of now?
Well, clearly, as of now, there have been at least 3 attacks on churches and another 3 on hotel institutions. It's clear that the target of the attacks are clear. It's either Christians who were celebrating Easter Sunday Mass, or it was foreigners and expats who frequent, 5-star hotels. So it was clear what the target of the attack was. It was coordinated. All of them happened near simultaneously. We know that it happened in at least 3 different locations, in Colombo, in Batticaloa, and in one other third location. So it's clear that this is organized. This is not a bunch of amateurs who've just decided to do this. This is clearly an organized attack. There is some kind of a well-coordinated machinery behind this attack, because it's impossible otherwise to have this kind of near simultaneous attacks that happened in different locations. Like I said, this is the worst incident of terror / violence / damage that's happened in Sri Lanka since the end of the war. And the war got over in 2009. So it's been exactly 10 years since the war concluded. And Sri Lanka had moved on since the Civil War. It has become a much more safer place for international tourists to visit. Sri Lanka is an economy that's dependent to a great extent on international tourist revenues. So it had come back into a life of its own. It had a couple of election cycles post then, and was looking forward to another election in the next 6 months or so. So it was a country that had sort of moved on from the scars of the civil war. And the only time we've seen this kind of, coordinated kind of strikes in the past was when the civil war was happening, when there were multiple attacks in Colombo, all of which were attributed to the LTTE. But in the last 10 years, the feeling in the security community was that the LTTE had been completely defeated. And though there were some remnants which were involved in some sporadic attacks, of a very minimal scale in the last 10 years, nothing of this sort has happened. This seems more like, a coordinated ISIS-style attack, where specifically, the people who were targeted were either Christians who were offering Easter Sunday Mass, or it was foreigners and expats who were also celebrating what is a very popular holiday in Sri Lanka. So I think the target of the attacks was clear. No organization has claimed responsibility so far, but it seems like the initial investigations point towards at least 2 or 3 modules that were active locally in Sri Lanka, which were possibly behind this attack. Who they belong to, what sort of organization, was this some kind of an international organization that was behind it? Did other agencies facilitate the movement of explosives? I mean, and given the nature of the blast, it's also evident that at least in a couple of these occasions, a couple of these instances, it was a suicide bomber. So questions are being asked about how he was allowed to enter these reasonably secure installations, whether it's the Shangri-La Hotel or even the Kopikar Church in Colombo, which is a very popular Catholic church in Colombo Port. So these questions will be asked, but for now, I think the immediate focus is to ensure that whoever needs first aid and safety, that's being attended to. We know, different hospitals in Colombo and Batticaloa are all running full with those who are injured in these attacks. The death toll, like you said, has gone above 100, which is the worst attack that Sri Lanka has seen in 10 years.
No group claiming responsibility. The government also has called for a National Security Council meeting, Zaka, today.
That's right. So far, like I said, no group has officially claimed responsibility, either owing allegiance to ISIS or any other faction. There have been instances in the past of, ethnic violence in Sri Lanka in terms of, between the Buddhist community and the Muslim community. I can't think of a previous instance where the Christian community was targeted in this fashion. It is a very tiny fraction of the population, in single digits, really, in terms of proportion of the population. But, by virtue of being a former British colony, there are lots of colonial-era churches. In fact, even the Kopikar Church is a very old institution and a very popular institution. So clearly, like I said, the target of this attack was, the Christian community, as well as to try and deepen the fault lines in Sri Lankan society, which is much like India. It's a multicultural, multi-ethnic sort of melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities, whether it's Buddhist Sinhala, whether it is Muslims, whether it's a tiny fraction of Christians, Tamils, so on and so forth. So clearly, the intent of the attackers was to deepen the fault lines, to try and, posit this as a major challenge for Sri Lankan society. And like I said, Sri Lankan people have always been a resilient lot. They've lived through 30 years of civil war, which was essentially between the Tamils in the north and the east. The LTTE became sort of the de facto spokespersons for the Tamil people and for their political rights, taking on the might of the state, which was majority Sinhala dominated, Sinhala Buddhist dominated. So the